Today, let's do a review of limiting patterns that keep you at a revenue level of $10,000 a month or less. Very often, it's not so much about limiting beliefs per se that keeps you stuck at a low revenue level. And if it is a problem about mindset, then there's plenty of videos you can watch about that. Today, instead, let's talk about action. What are the things that you're not doing? What are the actions, behaviors, habits, whatever you want to call it? What are these things that keep you at a low revenue figure? So let's get started. When you're at 10,000 a month or less, you're basically, as a business owner, just getting by. You're basically just living hand to mouth. If you have a family to feed, you have taxes to pay, you have a mortgage to pay, occasionally the car breaks down and that kind of stuff. So you're basically just treading water at that level. And if you think that this is just a temporary phase and you are actively working on it, you're working on your mindset, you're working on your principles and so on, that's great. And you won't stay there for a very long time. But often people get stuck at this level for a very long time and they find it very hard to break out of that. I've been stuck at this level for a very long time. And so today I want to talk about what it was that kept me at that level. And it was mostly about not knowing what to do and how to do it. Very simply put, I was lacking information and then the rigor and discipline to execute on that information. Rather than any form of lack of confidence or internalized shame and whatnot, it was purely just a matter of not knowing what to do. So today I'd like to talk about the 4 most important action shifts that I have made since being at 10,000 and below myself, what got me to the current level of $30,000 a month that I'm making right now on average. And I hope that this video will also become obsolete relatively soon as I'm scaling my way towards 100K months and beyond. So I will then report from that point of view. But for now, 10 to 30K is what I've got for you. Number 1 is about having a standardized service package that you can sell into your market. Doesn't have to be anything fancy and unique. Simply find something that sells. That was one of my biggest problems. I was doing all kinds of piecemeal work when I was at the below 10K level. My work was ranging from editing a textbook for 2 university professors from my old business school to writing a newsletter, a weekly newsletter for a solopreneur consultant, right? That broad of a range of services. I was really all over the place. And that is fine if you do that, if you are in a place where you just basically need the money to survive, that's okay. But the thing is, you have to be conscious that this is a transitory phase. It's not something permanent. You cannot just lean back when you hit an occasional 10K a month and you cannot say, oh, I'm a 6-figure entrepreneur or something like this. No, you're not. You have a piecemeal approach that happened to deliver a 10K month on occasion, but in reality, you're averaging 5 to 7K months, and it's not being very, productive. You're not building a business. Because the problem is, if you keep doing all kinds of random crap for people, you never develop any systems and processes that can make you more productive, more efficient. Every single thing is custom built. And so there's very little opportunity for you to scale it. But I was so reliant on referrals and people coming to me inbound that I was just glad to have whatever was coming in at the time. I was a beggar who couldn't be a chooser. The biggest mistake I made at this time was that I was not working on this particular issue of not having a standardized service that I was systematically exposing my market to. I simply didn't realize that what I was doing, this piecemeal approach, it was effectively like a 9-to-5, like a day job. I was just a hired body who people could throw at a specific problem. I wasn't learning about building a business. I was a jack of all trades freelancer. And so if you are at this level, if you're doing this kind of piecemeal approach, please realize the severity of your situation. This is not good. You're not building a business. You're just a glorified freelancer. If you're in B2B and you don't have at least one client who regularly, like clockwork, pays you $1,000, $2,000 a month, and even if you do, it's a service that is so unique, so idiosyncratic that it's virtually impossible that somebody else would ask the same from you. In that case, you don't have a business. So how do you figure out what kind of service you should try to scale? First, think about what have you done in the past that got you a pretty decent hourly rate. Let's say $100 an hour. Then think, if this person who paid you this good hourly rate, could you expand the service that you're giving to them to a point where they would pay you $2,000 a month? And then think, this person who was paying you this good hourly rate, would they need enough of that? Would they need more of the same that they would be willing and able to pay you $2,000 a month for a monthly retainer or a $10,000 fee for a one-time project? If not, go back to the previous step. Think about another thing that you've done in the past that paid you a decent hourly rate. And if nothing comes to mind, if you truly have only been doing low-paid piecemeal work, then simply look around. what kind of competitors are out there whose qualifications are comparable to you. Let's say somebody who has been in a similar line of business before, and then they've transitioned to run their own consulting business. What are their qualifications and what do they do? What do they say on their website, on their LinkedIn profile that they do for clients? And people are actually really open. If you approach them nicely on LinkedIn and you ask respectfully for a little bit of their time, they will tell you. They will tell you what it is that they do, how they sell their products and services, and how they like it. Is it something that you would enjoy doing? Right? People will be happy to give you this kind of information. And then once you find something, just copy it. And I don't mean don't do anything creepy like copying their website word for word or their LinkedIn profile. I don't mean that. I simply mean offer the same kind of value proposition to the same kind of client, to the same kind of prospect. And really importantly, just do it. Don't wait around. You can always change it later on. It's not a problem. People won't remember, oh, 3 months ago you were doing this, now you're doing that. Sure, it should not be completely different. You're not going to be a software engineer and then a yoga instructor later, but just do it, because it's much better to be asking yourself, what would I like to be doing with the rest of my life, from a vantage point where you have a bunch of cash in the bank, or once you've clocked in a couple of $20,000 months, you will be in a way different spot to judge that, what you want to do with the rest of your life, than if you are financially struggling. Okay, let's go to point number 2, and that is stop underselling your time. I mentioned an hourly rate of 100. That should be a decent minimum that you enforce if you're a consultant, if you're a white-collar professional. That's kind of the minimum that you would want to be selling your time at. And if you currently don't have skills that are worth $100 a month, well, then I would strongly recommend that you sharpen your skills, that you get some extra qualifications, that you learn on your own time, but you have to get to that point of being worth at least $100 an hour. And yes, I know you should not be necessarily selling your time, but honestly, if you're at a level of below 10K, then I think let's throw this adage, don't sell your time, throw it overboard. Let's get to a point where you are being paid a decent rate per hour, and then let's figure out how you can transition into, selling packages and away from selling your time. For the time being, let's focus on this. Let's get you a skill that reliably pays you $100 an hour and take it from there. And once you've established that, then it's really important that you start enforcing it. I regularly speak to people who chase tiny crumbs of revenue. Like the other day, I was speaking to someone who was doing coaching with somebody for $75 an hour. She was doing it, I believe, twice monthly, right? So that you might think, okay, $75 an hour, it comes quite close. But the thing is, she was not only giving them the coaching sessions. First of all, sometimes the coaching sessions overran, so she was not really being paid $75 an hour. And then they were relatively irregular. It was just on average twice a month, but very often they had to schedule the next session. They have to talk about what is it you want to talk about the next time. And so this little reactivity element in it, where she's reacting to emails, to WhatsApp messages from the client, that added up to so much time spent and so much context switching between tasks that she effectively was being paid $20 to $30 an hour. So that's the problem with this kind of small, tiny clients, that the time that it takes to service them, it racks up and you end up being paid much less than $75 or even $100 an hour. So beware this kind of piecemeal approach. And my advice to her would not be to just immediately cut off that client, but for the time being, start to enforce a little bit of boundaries, you can say, right? So you set up a time in the calendar, and if the other side cannot make it, then they have to cancel 48 hours in advance or else they get charged. So a little bit of boundaries can go quite a long way. Don't react to their emails. Don't respond to WhatsApp messages. You only meet at that time. And if not, if they want more, if they want even like WhatsApp correspondence, then you're going to charge them more. Right? There's no problem in saying, listen, it's like my kind of hourly rate is evolving. We need to look into this. I'm happy to continue at the old rate, but in that case, we cannot do any kind of emailing back and forth, no messaging. And you really gradually need to start enforcing this, because if you don't, these are the tiny little paper cuts that will ultimately kill you, metaphorically speaking, right? If you had just do 5 minutes here and 3 minutes there, and that means that also you do context switching in between those tasks, really bad. You have to be stingy with your time. And that also includes being stingy with your time towards clients. A good rule of thumb is that when you have a $2,000 a month client, that should not amount to more than 4 hours a week for them. And that means at a 40-hour work week, which for an entrepreneur is a bit like a part-time job, in a 40-hour work week, you should be able to make $20,000 per month. And so for starters, if you're at this piecemeal approach, you're below 10K, what are the specific next steps? I strongly recommend that you Formulate this value proposition and then get yourself one client in this way. It could be via referrals, activate past clients, see if you can upsell someone, somebody who's going to get you a reliable retainer. And once you have that locked in, then start decommissioning all those piecemeal clients. And if you don't want to do it, if you're still a little bit scared and conservative with it, I get it, then at least establish for yourself a money amount in your bank account. Once you get to that point, that's when you can start transitioning. It also doesn't mean you have to let everybody go from your piecemeal clients. You can also try to upsell them. Somebody who has been paying you $300 a month, let's say, for coaching, you could say, listen, I'm sort of consolidating my client base. I will only be doing stuff for $1,000 a month, but here's what I can offer you. This is the kind of package we could go with, and so on. Maybe some of your existing clients will bite. Whatever it is that you're going to do, you have to do this. You get rid of those piecemeal clients, because if you don't, it's going to hold you back forever. Once you got yourself a hypothesis for an offer, once you have an hourly rate that you won't go below, then you get yourself at least one client in this way by, asking in your existing network, by asking past clients and so on. And once you have that locked in, now is the time to add volume to your outreach. Which brings me to point 3. You have to add volume to your outreach to scale your business. And I have this epiphany story that I believe I've already shared. It's when I was on the phone with my coach and I was complaining to him that I was not getting enough clients. And he asked me, let's look at the last 2-3 months. How many people have you actively reached out to, started conversations with, pitched your offer? And I ran the numbers and I realized that at the time I was on average reaching out to 1.5 people every day. And he said, here's your problem. It's very obvious. This is the problem. If you reach to 1.5 people a day, how many do you think will bite? It's not like you're God's gift to the world and people will just line up on your doorstep to work with you. You have to ask for the business. 1.5 people a day is way too little. So once you have an offer that could work, shoot for 100 people a day. That's the rule of 100. You have to reach 100 people a day. They need to be exposed to your offer and be able to react to it. And if after 1 week of this, after reaching out to 500 people, you haven't gotten yourself a client, haven't even got yourself a call, well, then it's time to change the offer, to think, what other things could I be doing? But you have to run it past enough people to know. And I fully know that reaching out to 100 people a day sounds really daunting. Okay, so I don't expect you to get there right off the bat. It's not like you're going to stop watching this video and yay, tomorrow I'm going to start reaching out to 100 people. It takes time. So I'm going to give you 1 or 2 months to reach that level, but you have to start working your way towards that. I am sending 100 cold emails a day and I'm practically not involved in this. It's my virtual assistants who do all of it. They send 2,000 emails a month. 2,000 people get exposed to my offer. 2% of them book a call. 80% of them show up to the call. And then maybe 15% of them sign up for my service, which leads to roughly 1 new client a week. This whole thing costs me $2,500 to run, and I make $30,000 with 1 client a week. That will take you, of course, a while to get there. So let's now talk about what I would do if I had to start this from scratch. First of all, max out the number of people that you can talk to on LinkedIn and do friendly conversational prospecting with them. So that means find people who fit your target market on LinkedIn, add them, start a friendly conversation, and at some point direct the conversation towards asking how they're doing in their business and asking if you could help them in this area. The goal initially is that you get as many decision makers on the phone as possible because you want to run this offer past them, right? You don't just want to pitch them in writing and then only see silence. You want to get them on the phone and then present them the offer so that they are forced to give you some kind of qualitative feedback. And that's why in the beginning, it's important that you style these conversations as market research rather than sales. You can then transition into a more salesy approach, but initially market research. You want the qualitative input. And once you've been doing this consistently, you start 5, maybe even 10 friendly conversations on LinkedIn. By the way, also aside here, check in your first degree connections. You can start an unlimited amount of conversations there. There might be actually clients hiding in your existing connections. But once you've been doing this for a while, you're starting 5 to 10 conversations a day, you will develop a sensibility for what it is that resonates with your market. What is it that gets people booked on calls? And it should ideally be formulated as a value proposition, something like, hey, I was wondering if I could run this idea past you. I'm thinking of serving companies like you doing XYZ. Could I just get 15 minutes of your time to get your feedback on it? And I'd be happy to do some free work for you if you want to. Something along those lines. Those are kind of the initial market research questions. Once you see what resonates with people, then you can start scaling. And this would be the second step. Once you've done enough conversational prospecting, which takes time, yes, I get that, then you can start just sending volume, right? And that means you get a little bit of personalization, you approach new people, and you give them a cut and paste pitch. And then, of course, the number of responses will drop dramatically, but doesn't matter because only those people will respond who might be interested in what you sell. And that's when you then can start scaling. You will maybe get yourself a couple of more LinkedIn accounts. Well, that's what I would recommend you do. Maybe ask your parents if they could reactivate and dust off their old LinkedIn accounts. Somebody who you know who doesn't use their LinkedIn account, you can style them as your business development people and then start reaching out to your target audience on LinkedIn. And like that, if you can get your hands on 3 to 4 LinkedIn accounts, that can get you 15 to 30 conversation starts every day. And once you have that nailed, now you can also start adding cold email to it. I would get myself, 5 to 7 cold email accounts, maybe old Gmail accounts, again, something from friends. Gmail accounts work perfectly fine. You can then start approaching people and send them the same kind of pitch, a little bit of personalization so that they see that you're not just blasting it out with a tool. It's very important that you do it manually. And by the way, don't use your actual real proper Gmail account or whichever email it is that you use, because you might get flagged for spam. So don't use your real email account, use others. And then when people respond, you then redirect their response to your actual warm proper email account. And that's where you then start communicating with them. It's a little bit complicated, but hit me up on LinkedIn if you want to know more. And so that then can make up the difference between the 30 you're doing on LinkedIn, you add another 70 on cold email, and now we're rolling. And this will take you time. I think like 1 or 2 months, as I said, before you get to that level where you're sending 100 a day. But that's the magic of volume, because once you expose enough people, don't tell me that if you approach 500 people a week, that you cannot close 1 new client every 2 weeks, right? And then all you need in order to get to 10 retainer clients who pay you $2,000 a month is 5 months. In 5 months, you could be at total of $20,000 a month if you follow this approach. And initially, it's going to take you practically all day to get that done. Gradually, as you become more efficient, you can cut that down. You can actually really reach out to 100 people every day in a 4-hour time window. By the way, a little bonus here, offer some kind of risk reversal. When you approach them as a no-name person, somebody they have never heard of, if you don't have, like, say, a personal brand built, then I strongly recommend you offer some kind of risk reversal from their point of view. They don't know you, so if you can offer them something like a money-back guarantee, or I'll work for free purely on results basis until you're happy and then we can agree on a retainer. Something like that, so that it's really a no-brainer. It should be an offer that they would feel stupid saying no to. Okay, and those are the 3 main steps. Now, step number 4, after you formulated an offer, you have a minimum threshold for an hourly rate, and then you actually add volume to your outreach. Now, very crucial point, step number 4, you cannot allow any distraction to derail you from this execution. You need to execute this in a really disciplined and rigorous manner every day. And this staying on the path, as I call it, also you can call it becoming a serious person, becoming a serious business owner. That was huge for me, because I unfortunately gave in a little bit to this siren song of entrepreneurship fueled freedom. Early on, I was thinking, yay, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm doing my own thing, so I'm free. And that means I can, if I want to, sleep in on Monday because I can work on a Sunday. Or I can go with, I didn't have kids at the time, but I would say I can go take the kids to the park on a Wednesday afternoon. Or my wife is asking me, hey, I need to get something from IKEA. Could you help me carry it? And so on. Sure, honey, it's a Tuesday morning, but I don't mind at all because I can catch up with work on Saturday. That kind of stuff is deadly. Just like other typical other distractions that we laptop warriors face, like, oh, let me just watch a couple of Seinfeld reruns on YouTube, right? Those things are all deadly. And you fall into this trap because you think you don't have a boss, right? And formally you don't, but in reality you do. Your boss is your future millionaire self who is looking over your shoulder as you are working in an undisciplined manner and is very disappointed with you. You're letting that person down. And so staying on the path also means that you have to stop the excuses. I recently spoke to somebody who was working in a relatively low paid part-time job, had a couple of, piecemeal clients that were bringing in $200-300 a month. And I asked this person, well, how much time would you have to actually build your business? Because it was like a sales call. So I was wondering, well, how much time would you be willing to invest into actually us helping you build your business? And he said 5 hours a week. I said, could you stretch that? Any chance we could do 10? I was like, no, it's just, no, it's too much. And I then thought, well, wait, so you have a part-time job. You have a little bit of piecemeal clients. What else are you doing? Like, what is taking up the bulk of your time? And then the excuses started rolling in, and it was all like justifiable. It was like, my daughter is a semi-professional ballet dancer, so I'm taking her to practice. I'm getting a certification that I'm studying for. I need to spend time on that. And then I'm also remodeling my garage. And I'm like, okay. It just won't work. If you have all of these priorities, you don't want to build your business. It's fine. We can part as friends. You don't want to build your business. You're not willing to make the sacrifice that it will take. Because if you think that when you have a little bit of experience with piecemeal clients and you think you can get by with 5 hours a week of doing a little bit of, business development here, it just won't work. And that means also stay on your path means making some sacrifices. Hey, maybe we can find another arrangement to bring the daughter to practice, right? Maybe we could just work overtime, get that $2,000 a month client first, and part of the money then goes to getting the daughter a cab so that she can take the cab to ballet practice. I don't know what it is, but you have to make it work somehow. Otherwise, life is just going to go past and you will continue being at that revenue level. And if this is not a problem for you, okay, you've chosen it, but don't try to pretend that you're trying to build a business when you're not willing to make these small sacrifices that it would take to work your way around that, to put in 20, 30 hours a week if you already have a part-time job. So number one, figure out your service package and offer. Number two, figure out a minimum revenue threshold per hour that you're going to stick to and slowly detransition everything that does not adhere to this. Point number three, add volume to your outreach. And point number four, keep doing these three things all the time. Iterate. You will get to 20K months before you realize it, right? It's very possible. It's really doable. Plenty of people have done it and they are not smarter than you. They just have done these things. It's not about mindsets. It's not about limiting beliefs. It's simply about doing a couple of things that are proven to work. And the most important then is don't allow anything to distract you, not even your most loved one. I'm telling my wife that when I'm working, she can only interrupt me if the house is on fire or somebody is dying. And I honestly wish I would stick to that even when she's making pizza or cookies, which I don't. And I guess that's probably what is separating me from these $100,000 months. So that'll be for me to figure out as the next step. Damn those pizza and cookies. Anyway, I hope you like this. If you did, then hit the like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to this on the podcast, do whatever people do on a podcast. I don't know, but just recommend it to a friend or whatever. Anyway, it was great talking to you and I hope to see you in the next video.